Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. Now it's a Sunday evening. I'm up at the truck as usual, ready to start tomorrow morning. Over the weekend I managed to watch a little bit of YouTube. Just had nothing else to do, so I thought it'd kill an hour. I actually watched a video which I thought was pretty damn good, to be fair, and it hit the nail right on the head. I shall explain further. Now, there's a chap I've been watching. He's put a couple of good videos up, quite controversial videos, shall we say, showing, how can I put it, the harder side of driving a truck for a living. His actual channel name is Case Dismissed. Now, if you want to see a really good, well put together video, then I suggest you go and search him on YouTube. Like I say, his username is Case Dismissed. I watched one of his videos about a week ago. He was, from what I can remember, he had a problem and he was on the hard shoulder of a motorway, to which the police turned up, obviously, to see what was going on, and they went through him, to be fair. This is the controversial bit. Now, like I say, I can't quite remember why he was stopped on the hard shoulder, whether he had a problem or something, I don't know. But obviously the video, as you watch the video, the police turn up and they ask him what's going on. He explains the situation, and you would think the police would say, well, look, sort your problem, blah, 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 let's have you on the way. Not a problem. But no, these traffic officers were out to do him, out to shaft him, basically. They made him open the curtains at the side of the motorway. Bear in mind, he's got a curtain sider. Now, we all know the government keeps spouting on about how dangerous it is to stop on the hard shoulder, unless it's a serious emergency or what have you. You know, get out of the vehicle, get behind the barrier. And then you get two traffic officers that tell the driver, in this case Mr. Case Dismissed, to undo his curtains at the side of a busy motorway so they can check his load. Now, are they right doing that? Personally, no. If they wanted to check his load, obviously for load security, which, don't get me wrong, I'm all for, it's important. Nobody wants to lose a load on the motorway. It causes all sort of problems and could even cause fatalities. You know, we've all seen these horror videos where loads have come off lorries and unfortunately people have lost their lives. Now, I'm not condoning anything that this driver did. Like I say, this is my personal opinion on it. The video that I watched, I was absolutely gobsmacked, to be fair. I mean, I've been driving trucks now 20 odd years, and I've never met, maybe one or two, but I've never met two traffic officers that had such an attitude. Like I say, they made him undo the curtains at the side of the motorway, which ain't the best, let's be honest. You know, there's traffic whizzing past at the national speed limit, 70 mile an hour. Trucks going past at 56 mile an hour. It's not the safest place to be undoing a curtain sider and checking for load security, is it? And it just, as the video progresses, they're trying to find everything, and I mean everything, wrong with the way he's loaded this trailer. Now, from what I can remember, it's a load of glass jars or bottles. I can't remember anyway. They're double stacked, okay, but they're what they call tightly packed. Now, from what you can see on the, like I say, if you want to have a proper look at what I'm talking about, then go and search for him on YouTube and watch his video. It'll explain probably better than I can, to see it as it is. The pallets are butted up together like that. Okay, so they're not going to go anywhere. They're up against the headboard, and each pallet is up against the other one. So there is minimal movement. Okay, you're going to get a little bit of movement, but not enough to warrant losing the load. Also, the trailer had planks. Now, you've seen them with the Johnny Foreigners on the, and a lot of the old school drivers will remember the tilt trailers where you had the planks across the side of the trailer. It had planks and it had the curtain. Now, I can't remember whether the curtain was load bearing. Now, there's two different sorts of curtains on a curtain sider. From what I remember, one is a non-compliant curtain, which means it's not designed to hold a load in the trailer, should I say. And then you get the load compliant ones, which offer a certain amount of security for the load. Now, obviously, you need to strap your load, etc., etc. I'm not going to preach on it because it's got to be 5 or 6 years since I last did curtain sider work, so I'm a bit rusty at it. Like I say, I do a walking floor, so I don't have to worry about that. But in my opinion, the load was perfect. There was even the traffic officer that had the problem with the driver commented that it hadn't moved, but they were still looking for something to pull this poor guy up on. I get it. As I said, load security is very important, you know, whether you're on a tilt trailer, a flat trailer, low loader, etc., etc. The load has got to be secure. And I know now, if you get stopped by our friends in the DVSA and you have a curtain sider, or let's say a step frame curtain sider, or a flat or a tilt, etc., they will ask you to open the curtain so they can check the load security. As I say, I'm all for it. Safety's a priority. But this traffic officer's, policeman's attitude was appalling. It was disgraceful. Now, the driver showed him the load, explained the situation, that it's got the planks in holding, you know, down the side of the trailer. The pallets were butted up, so they weren't going to go anywhere. But this wasn't enough. So they made the poor chap sit at the side of a busy motorway for nearly an hour while the police officer, you know, traffic cop, whatever you want to call them, actually radioed to get a sergeant to come down and check the load. Now, I'm not being funny here, and, you know, feel free to comment down below if you agree or disagree. This is what it's all about. It's all about education and discussing the things that, as professional drivers, we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. To me, the load wasn't going anywhere. I would have quite happily hooked up to that trailer, took it to the delivery location, delivered the load, not a problem at all. But for the traffic policeman to want a second opinion from his sergeant, doesn't that tell you something? That he's not sure himself. Okay. Now, if he knew the law, shall we say, he would be able to pass judgment on how the load is secured to the vehicle, whether the driver could have done more to secure the load to the vehicle. You know, for him to have to get a second opinion, alarm bells would start ringing. Okay. Now, as I've said previously, it's our responsibility as professional drivers to secure the vehicle. You know, whether you're carrying toilet rolls or, in this case, from what I remember, it was either glass jars or glass bottles. I can't remember now. But the load has got to be secure. That's the law. And the driver himself, like his name, forgive me, I can't remember his name. But in my opinion, he had done everything in his power to secure that load so he could transport it from point A to point B. Now, the policeman raised a point about ratchet straps. Okay. Chuck a ratchet strap over the top of it and tighten it down. You can do that with some loads, but obviously jars or bottles, they're in rows, aren't they? Stacked on top of each other. As soon as you chuck a ratchet strap over and you start cracking it down, as you would, then it splits the load. Because the ratchet strap can't, the load isn't strong enough to support the ratchet strap. So then you get problems, don't you? Because the integrity of the pallet stacking has been compromised. Whether it's got cling film round or vac packed, it doesn't matter. It's damaging not only the packaging that surrounds the pallet, but it's also going to damage the goods on the pallet. So in my opinion, a ratchet strap wasn't good for that situation in strapping that load. Now you could say, well, use your internal straps. Granted, you can use your internal straps. But like I say, watch the video, because in my opinion, and you know, feel free to comment down below, because that's what this is all about, education, etc., and time to have a good chat about things. In my opinion, the load was fine. I would have personally, happily, like I said, took that load up the road. Now, it doesn't show, you know, the video doesn't show you what the back pallets are like. Now, I would leave them all unstrapped like they are, especially if it's got the planks in the side of the trailer and the load bearing curtains. Myself, I would have strapped the rear pallets at the back doors. I would have chucked some internal straps over them like that, just to hold everything in place. Not a problem. That would have been ideal. And I'm sure if he got stopped by DVSA and they checked the load, I would bet myself a large chicken kebab that they would have been fine with that. I could be wrong, but again, it depends on your attitude as a driver and the DVSA officer's attitude. Now, which leads me to another point, another one of his videos. He got stopped by DVSA, just a general check, etc., etc. And the attitude of some DVSA officers is ridiculous. Now, I know they've got a job to do. I understand that. You know, they're here to protect me as a driver from unscrupulous operators, and they're there to protect you, the general public, from drivers like me breaking the law. Okay, so they went through the lot with him. Now, one or two of the officers were absolute, I'm just going to be blunt here, arseholes. They wouldn't give the driver the opportunity to speak. They dismissed everything the chap said. It was just painful to watch this video, and I felt sorry for the guy. I really did. Like I say, look for him on YouTube. Case dismissed is his user handle, and I literally, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Now, go along and watch the video and make your own minds up. But I'm erring on the side of, yeah, they were out to do him for something. You know, yes, we all get infringements. No one's perfect. Whether it's 2 minutes over your driving time, they normally don't bother. You know, if you've got a reasonable explanation, then fair play. Weekly rest, etc., they're a bit more, how can I put it, clampy downy on it. Now myself, I write down everything in my diary, all my loads, what time I loaded, what time I left, start time, finish time, mileage, any delays, etc. And if I do get a delay which forces me to go over either my driving time or my duty time, I will do a printout on the tachograph. In fact, I'll do 2 printouts on the tachograph. I will staple one into my diary on that particular day, sign it as you requested to do legally, and I'll keep the other one in my folder, which is down there with my tacho rolls and my driver CPC card and all that malarkey. So if I do get stopped, I can show them the reasons why. If you do that, I've never had a problem. And I've been over my house. We've all done it. We've all been caught on a Friday afternoon in an accident or traffic or whatever. And most of the time, it's words of advice. You know, they'll probably say, well, plan your brakes earlier, driver, especially on a Friday. But we all need to get on, don't we? But anyway, in the video, you know, it was brought up that he hadn't recorded his weekly rest. Now, this is a bit of a grey area, in my opinion. Now, I drive the same truck all the time. We all do. We all seem to keep, we keep the same truck all the time. It's very rare that it goes out at the weekend. If it does, it's only for MOT purposes or the 6 weekly check or what have you. And the mechanic's got his own driver card, puts it in the tacho, and away you go. So this brings it on to the weekly rest, which is what they were trying to pull him up on. As the conversation progresses, he's talking to a lady from DVSA, and she says, well, what were you doing from, say, 5 o'clock on the Friday night till 5 o'clock on the Monday morning when you put your card in, driver? He said, well, I was obviously at home on rest. And the first thing she said was, which I found very patronising, her attitude suddenly changed. She seemed pleasant enough until the driver said, well, obviously I'm at home, I'm on rest. And what she came back with was, well, how do I know that? And he said, well, because I've just told you. And her attitude was, and the answer was, it was laughable. She says, well, how do I know you've not just done a 10-hour shift at your local Tesco's? I mean, come on. I know there are people that bend the rules and, run bent, etc., etc. I get it. But this chap, to me, from what I can see, is as honest as the day is long. He's like me. He drives around the UK delivering all your shit that you buy on Amazon and all that malarkey. And he does it to the best of his abilities. He keeps legal to the best of his abilities and gets the job done. And he clocks off on a Friday, much like myself, and goes home. Now, there is a legal requirement for you to record your weekly rest and your daily rest. Like I say, it's not so bad for us because my truck is my truck. I'm the only driver, like I say. So, as long as you can record, I put it in my diary, I write down what time I finish, etc., etc. But that doesn't matter because that diary cannot stand up in court. But I do that for my own self benefit. So I can look at that and say, well, I finished at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. I'm starting at 5 o'clock Monday morning. I make sure I have all my 45 hours off, etc. Or if I need to reduce to 24 hours or 36 or whatever, I can work backwards so I don't get any infringements. And the attitude of this lady off DVSA officer was absolutely laughable. We all know now they're self-funded, so they will try and find a problem. That's what they do, regardless. Again, I'm not condoning breaking the law, but there are times when shit happens, You may think you've had 45 minutes, set off down the road, get stopped, and you've only had 43 minutes. They will jump on you for that. There's no leeway. There used to be. Now, it's the graduated fixed penalty. They'll just slap a £120 fine on you and then another £120 for the extra minutes that you're over on that. Again, as I've said before, and I reiterate, I'm not condoning breaking the law. But we're only human. And sometimes, for whatever reason, you're going to get infringements, okay? So, but I just thought the officer, for a professional DVSA officer, her attitude was appalling. Whether she was having a bad day or not, or whether she just didn't like the driver, I don't know. But then she had an issue with him recording the checks. Well, as far as I'm aware, the rules are if you're in a public place, you can record anything. So he recorded that for his own benefit. So if they turn around and say, well, you hit one of our officers, he can say, well, that's bullshit because I've got it on video that I didn't. She had a problem with that. And if you watch the video, it explains it easier than I can from what I can remember. But she actually texted the driver, right, and said to him, please delete that video because it's giving me mental health issues. Because he put it on YouTube. Now, in fairness to the guy, he blurred out their faces, which to me, that's enough. Okay, that he's done his due diligence to have the respect to blur out their faces. But you can't expect us as professional drivers to toe the line when the DVSA officers pull stunts like that. You know, it defies. You know, I can't get my head around it sometimes. Myself, my personal experiences of DVSA are good. You know, at the end of the day, they've got a job to do. If you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to hide. If they do find a problem, you explain it. You know, they may look at it as if a genuine mistake. If they see a pattern of infringements, like over your driving hours, not enough daily rest, not enough break periods, etc., then yes, start digging. You know, root up the last 28 days. But if it's one mistake, they're normally pretty good. You know, yes, like every job, there are some arsehole truck drivers out there that the first instance, they jump out of the cab, oh, what you pulling me for, your job's were. I get it. You know, we've all got to get on. But it works both ways. Respect works both ways. They come to me with respect, I'll respect them back. They come, all the big man, you know, I'm such and such, you do as you're told. No, I ain't doing that. And fair play, like I say, his name evades me, but his channel's called Case Dismissed. Fair play to Mr. Dismissed. He stood his ground and, you know, he defended his rights, which I get. You know, I totally understand it. I would have done probably the same in that situation, because there was no need for her to have the attitude of, you will do as I say. But it don't work like that. You know, we're human beings. And I just think the whole video will be an eye-opener to some folk. And just on the subject of his videos, I watched another one about, this was today actually, before I came up to the yard. Now, it's a contentious subject, this is, about HGV drivers leaving the industry. Now, I've done a video myself about the facilities that we have to endure as truck drivers, which kind of thank everybody that commented on it. You know, the conversations that were backwards and forwards were really good. You know, there was negative ones and positive ones, which is what it's all about. A lot of the drivers that messaged me, you know, left comments, agreed the same. The facilities are appalling. You know, you're expected to shower in a shower where you press the button on the wall, because obviously we're not allowed showers that run, you know, you turn it on and it runs, because we can't be trusted with water for some strange reason. So you press the button and it's on a timer. Now, some of these showers, you press the button, you get 20 seconds of shower and it goes off again. So you have to keep pressing the button. It's ridiculous, you know. Are we not allowed running water as human beings? And like the toilets, some of the toilets that we have to endure are disgusting, disgraceful. You wouldn't do it at home, so why are we expected to do it? Now, as I said in my previous video, there's a glimmer of hope. You know, the new services at Rotherham, multi-million-pound services, but it's still going to have the same problem. And I know what people are going to say right now. Yeah, but you wreck everything. Yes, that there are a minority of drivers that spoil it for everybody else. You know, it's like every industry. You're going to get the arseholes that don't give a shit about the facilities and they just trash them, which you can't do anything about. You know, it is what it is. This is human nature. But that's one reason. But I think the main reason is a lot of the drivers are just, they're fed up with the job, you know. And he's right, what he says is, Mr. Case Dismissed, the attitude of people towards us as drivers. You all want your stuff on the tables, you all want your stuff in the shops, right? You all want your new cars, your new trainers, you want your flat screen TVs. How do you think they get to the stores? Right? It's a chain of events. They come in the country, you know, by boat. The container's thrown on a truck. The truck delivers it to an RDC. It's broken down into its components, you know. It goes on more trucks to the shops. or even smaller RDCs, and then it's distributed by trucks all over this fair land. So whatever you buy, I would say, feel free to correct me, but I would say 90% of everything that's bought in the UK has at some stage been on the back of one of these bad boys. Because that's how shit gets travelled about. He made a valid point about drivers leaving the industry, which, well, he made 2 or 3 good valid points, to be fair. Pay's one of them. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth on pay, because a lot of drivers are paid on a different pay structure than what I am. I am paid for what I do. I'm on hourly pay. The company I work for is old school. We get paid weekly. Now, a lot of companies move to the fortnightly pay and the monthly pay. So, for whatever reason, we've stayed on weekly pay, which works better for me because I can budget throughout the week. Okay, we've just been taken over by a company in Birmingham who have tweaked the pay structure. Am I better off? Yeah, loads better off. We've had a pay rise, we're getting all new uniform, etc. But that's an inner buy. But the point that he was putting across was, now, young people coming into the industry, I've spoke to 2 or 3 myself who I know as friends. And I'm not saying, I'm not classing everybody in the same as what some folk are, if that makes sense. Tiring people with the same brush, that's a word. It was on about young people coming into the industry and all they want is the V8 Scania with all the light bars, the 3-spoke steering wheel and the loud pipes. I get it. Don't get me wrong, some of them trucks look stunning, but, and this is the big but, they're easily lured in. Now, the situation, you get a driver, probably done 20 years on the road, he's after some work, or the company he's working for is not the best, so he has a nose around. He finds a company, he goes to the interview, blah, 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 and they tell him what he's earning, blah, 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 no problem at all. He takes a job, okay? One of my friends, who I'm not going to name him because it's unfair to name him, keen as mustard, passed his Class 1 to drive an Arctic about 4 years ago. He was in a job that he didn't like. It didn't work out too well for the old fella. Well, I say old fella, he's 30 odd, 35, 36, I think. And he wants to drive a truck, which I get. So my suggestion to him was, start on the agency, gain some experience, keep your nose clean, get yourself a good name in the industry, you can go far. But his attitude is, he wants to earn £1,500 a week, and he wants the big 770 Scania with the light bars and all the bells and whistles. Fair play to you if that's what you want. Like I said, I'm not judging people. Go for it, mate. But a lot of haulage companies are cottoning on to this, that the young blood want to drive the big V8 Scanias, the big XG DAFs, the big Volvo Aeros. I get it. Back in the day, that's what I wanted to do, but I never got the opportunity. So what they'll do, they'll give these young boys and young girls the jobs, and they'll pay them peanuts, barely enough to live on. But they'll take it because they get to drive the big Scanias with all the bells and whistles. And I think, personally, that's bollocks. I think if you come into the job, bearing in mind, some lads and lasses like myself, we're away all week from home. We're away from our families. We don't have much of a social life. And sometimes you just think to yourself, is the job worth doing? Personally, I enjoy the job. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy getting up and down this fair land. Do I moan about the job? Well, of course I do. That's what we do as drivers. We moan about the job. Am I good at anything else? I'm good at fuck all. All I can do is drive a truck. I left school at an early age. I did a bit of factory work and the usual warehouse work. My dad, bless him, he drove wagons for 50 years, so I went out with him and I said to him, I want to do this. And he slapped me at the back of the head and says, if I ever catch you in a truck, son, I'm going to kick you in the bollocks. Because he knew what the job was like. Now, back in his day, it was a lot better. Facilities were better. There was your greasy spoon calves everywhere. None of this £30 to park on a pothole-ridden motorway services where you get your load nicked and your diesel nicked and you have to go in a shower where somebody's done a shit in the... And I've seen it. I've seen people that have shit in the shower tray. It's just... The job's on its arse. And he made some really good, valid points. Again, watch his videos because they're a proper eye-opener. Now, as I said, bringing the young blood into the industry, they're not interested. You know, they're not going to sit, right? I've spoke to quite a few young lads that have got their HGVs, and they all say the same. We're not going to sit in a lorry for 13, sometimes 15 hours a day, earning a wage to be shouted at, cut up on motorways, you know, have my diesel nicked, have my curtains slashed, shower in somebody else's detritus, eat shit food, and generally be took the piss out of by operators. I understand it. You know, they can earn the same money working in an office or working at Amazon or whatever. So they're not going to come into the industry. Unless things change, more and more drivers, what I call old school drivers like myself, are just packing it in. You know, they're done. They can't, there's just no point in the job anymore, which is sad because I've just seen from my videos that I post on YouTube, etc. The job can be fun. The job can be a good laugh. Like last week, I was parked in Whitby overnight. I got paid to go down the seafront, sit and drink a posh coffee and watch the world drift past. I get paid to do that, okay? So it has its perks, but it also has its shit side of the job. Luckily, the company I work for, I've been here 17 years now. And as a company, before we were bought out, couldn't fault them at all. We're only a small company. There's only 12 drivers. But we're looked after. You know, we do the work and we get paid. We have banter with the transport manager, banter with the boss. Everyone's a winner. Okay? I get paid a reasonable wage for the work that I do. Do I want more money? Well, of course I want more money. Who wouldn't? You know, the way things are going, everybody needs more money in today's climate, but I'm earning enough to keep me comfortable, you know, and that's what it's all about. I just think the points he put across, obviously with DVSA, the attitude, the police, the attitude, and what he says about young people coming into industry, 100% agree with him, with everything the chap said. So pop along onto YouTube. Like I say, I can't actually remember his actual name, but I know his channel's called Case Dismissed. He made some valid points on some good points were put across. So yeah, I thought, you know, myself, I thought I'd do this video just to say to him, I agree with everything you've said, matey. You know, the job is on its arse. There's no if, why or wherefore about it. It's bollocksed. You know, a friend of mine in Scotland, a really good friend of mine actually, sent me some pictures today that some people were chucking stones off the motorway bridges and 3 or 4 trucks got damaged. Luckily, nobody got hurt. But how stupid and reckless is that? Right? Chucking bricks off motorway bridges at trucks. Bearing in mind one of these at 44 tonne doing 56 mile an hour takes a bit of time to stop. You know, and if that had come through the screen and hit the driver in the face, that's him finished. You know, that's somebody's dad, granddad, husband, brother, whatever. That's him finished, you know. All through some stupidity of somebody throwing shit off a motorway bridge. Which, again, is a nail in the coffin for the industry. Is it going to get better? My personal opinion, no, I don't think it is. It's going to take a lot of money, a lot of government intervention, which they're not interested about, to put this job back on a level playing field. And as I said before, during COVID, we were heroes, you know. It was unbelievable. We were the knights of the road, right? Nothing was too much trouble for people when COVID was on. Since we came out of lockdown, it's gone back to normal, hasn't it? You see it yourself. People just haven't got time for people anymore. The driving standards have dropped considerably. It's just horrible. It's a horrible time right now. I would prefer to go back to the COVID days because I could get my job done. And there was a lot of respect. Free coffees at Costa at the Shell garages. Yeah, that suddenly stopped, didn't it? As soon as COVID was over, no, you can't get none of that now, driver. You know, and it's piss poor. You know, I look over the water at our French, German, Norwegian, Belgiques from the Netherlands. I've driven abroad in a truck. It's a different ball game. You pull up to get your diesel, etc. You know, you fill your diesel tank. You get a free coffee or a free pastry or a token to put in the machine to get something to eat. What do we get over here? Sweet FA, that's what we get over here. But who knows? Personally, I don't think it's going to change. You know, like I say, there's slight glimmer of hope on it. You know, things are, I wouldn't say better than they were, but they're improving. But it's going to take time. It's going to take time, money, and support from the government to put this job back where it should be, you know. Now, I'm not saying we're anything special, because we're not. We're manual workers at the end of the day. But if it wasn't for us drivers, you wouldn't have none of your shit on your table of a weekend, would you? Now, that probably ruffle a few feathers, but it is what it is. That is the cold, hard truth. You know, we're not expecting pants thrown at us, you know, the rock style, the rock and roll lifestyle. It ain't like that. We just want a bit of respect, and we're not getting it. And this is what's wrong with this job. If there was more respect in the job, especially from the professionals like DVSA and the police and the motorway services operators and the staff at the RDs, just everybody needs to have more respect for each other. You know, because then we all get along and we all get everything done, don't we? But like I say, go and give the chap a follow. Have a look at his YouTube videos, and it makes interesting watching. That's just my thoughts. Now, some of it's going to be controversial. I'll probably get a lot of flack over my thoughts, but that's what this is all about, isn't it? It's about airing your opinions on a platform that everybody can get involved in. You know, that's what it's all about. This is what needs to happen. So, that being said, I'm going to get my daily checks done. I'm going to have a walk around, check the other wagons on the fleet, because that's what I do on a Sunday. So if there's any problems, I can ring the boss and tell him. And I'm going to get my card in, and I'm going to go do a bit of trucking. So yeah, like I say, go and watch his videos. They're bloody good, to be fair. He put some valid points across. And if you wouldn't mind, I'm trying to grow this channel. Trying to get more content done as and when I can. It's been a bit lapse of weeks because I've been so busy at home. I've got things going on at home and things with my dad, etc., personal life. So I will try and get more videos posted, more shorts, etc. So if you wouldn't mind just liking and subscribing, because it helps me grow the channel. And let me know what you want to see. Do you want to see more of the walking floor side of it, more of the facilities side of it, more of me as a person, my personal life, you know, what I get up to at weekends, which involves motorbikes and cars, etc., etc.? then leave a comment down below. And if you want to leave a comment about anything that I spoke about, then do it. You know, let's get the ball rolling. Let's have a good conversation and see what we can come up with, and sort of get a community together and see if we can't sort the job out, because it's on its arse. So yeah, thank you for watching. And like I say, if you could, I know all the YouTubers say it, but that's how it works apparently. So if you could like and subscribe down below, it'd be much appreciated. So yeah, go along and see him. Like I say, his channel's called Case Dismissed. Go and watch the video and then comment down below on whether you think he's got some valid points or not. So yeah, there we are. I'll leave it with you. Have a good one now. Speak soon.